Okay, folks, we're here in Cocoa Beach, Florida. I got Marc Krsek on the phone. Marc Krsek has a Space Coast fishing class over in Cocoa Beach. He's an avid angler, fisherman, great fisherman. If you've ever been in Facebook and seen his post, I still say he has the biggest reds I've ever seen posted in Facebook, and I've seen some doozies there. But Marc is just, I mean, incredible fisherman. Been doing it for years out there, and he's one of our hosts now on our fishyfins.com broadcast network. And he really works closely with Banks Lures. He's a pro rep from Banks Lures, and really knows how to fish those baits. And he reports back to the engineers there at Banks and Ricky Banks himself, and they've come up with some great stuff. But I'm going to let Marc tell us about fishing out there on the Space Coast of Florida, and then we're going to talk a little bit about this new bait. I don't think it's available to the public yet, but we're going to talk about it anyway. But Marc, if you can, let us know what's going on out there in the Space Coast.
Yeah, we definitely got big reds here on the Space Coast. It's kind of hard to get away from them, which is a good thing. But yeah, the fishing is hot all over right now. I mean, you anywhere you go, you're going to have more problems not finding fish. Some of them are kind of spooky that I've been finding, and we're getting a lot of tailors, and it almost seems like the tailors are on really small crabs, so they're kind of hard to get to notice what you got. You got to make a really good presentation, a really precise cast. It's kind of a fine balance of not getting it too far away, but not getting it too close, because if you get it too close, they've been spooking off of it. But a lot of tailing fish around. They're still pretty schooled up in certain areas. You got schooled up slot reds, and you've also got the big boys that are hanging off the edges of the flats. You know, our spawn's coming up in about a few months, and we've kind of got some schools assembling kind of in the pre-spawn deal, and if you look hard enough in certain areas around here, you're going to find them guys. And real important thing about them, you know, they are fixing to spawn, and you kind of want to disrupt them as little as possible. So, you know, don't go out there with your ultralight tackle. You know, tackle up, use bigger line, bigger rods. That way you hook your fish, you get them in, and you get them back in the school before you do too much damage to them, exhaust them too much. That's a really important thing. Big trout, we've got big trout everywhere right now. You know, it's not uncommon to go out and get a 30-inch trout right now. Throwing top waters in the early morning is your best bet. You can still get them after about 8 o'clock. The big trout action, though, after about 8 o'clock really starts to die back. But you can still find them on areas of flats that are close to deep water, say a channel, a deep hole, because you see these big trout, they want shelter, and they want to be able to, they want an escape route. So if they get spooked, they're not going to be more than 20, 30 yards away from deep water to where they can jump back in there and kind of drop out of sight.
Oh, sure. Yep, I see what you're saying. Well, let me ask you this now. When you're going from shallow to deep water and whatnot, are you sticking with top water throughout the day on trout, or you just kind of shift into, like, I know you like the Banks creeper, flats creeper, and that works really well. But how often or how long are you catching trout in the mornings until you switch from the top water to something a little bit deeper?
A lot of it depends on the weather conditions. If you've got, like today, we've got a real overcast, and the topwater bite will probably go on well into the late morning, you know, until the sun finally decides to pop out. It's got a lot to do with the conditions, but I find when the sun comes up and it gets bright out there, the topwater bite kind of starts dying off, and at that point, you kind of want to go subsurface. And like you said, the flats creeper is great. We've been just annihilating the fish on the flats creeper, and I've been fishing it like a spoon. I don't even jig that thing anymore. I throw it out there and I rip it back to me, and it doesn't really matter how fast you're ripping it back to you. If they're in the mood, they're going to turn on it, and they're going to chase it down and engage it. So that's a really great lure this time of year. We've also got the Dock Boss and the Mangrove Mercenary, which is great to throw at them tailors. I've been getting them to pick it up. I put a little bit of shrimp procure on that Dock Boss, and rather than twitch it to the side, you know, rapidly, I'm twitching it upwards very deliberately, and it really mimics the shrimp popping in and out of that grass. So, really versatile lure. You know, depending on the way you manipulate it, you can make it look like whatever you want to.
Well, it's beautiful. I mean, I've seen, you know, the Dock Boss is actually like a shrimp emulator soft bait, and it's just, it's a beautiful bait. Now, a little bit later on, we're going to talk about super soft bait that Mr. Banks just come up with that looks like kind of like the Dock Boss, but it's on steroids. And it's a really cool bait. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But let me ask you this, Mark. Now you're out there fishing for trout. This is getting toward the middle of June. The rains have started. We've got overcast. You're playing with the flats creeper. What kind of colors are you're dealing with out there right now?
Really depending on the weather conditions. You can't go wrong with a white, a pearl, or the glow color, which is pretty much a white. That's basically what I've been using, or the Santa Steve color, he calls it, which is a white body with a red head. That's been killing him lately. He's also just put out for public consumption the Mimic Mullet, which is a really, really good color bait. It's got kind of a dull silver back and a shiny silver belly, and when you're looking at these finger mullets that you're spooking on the flats and you're looking at them from the top, this lure is a dead ringer for that color. So that's another great color I've been working with, is the Mimic Mullet.
Mimic Mullet. Matter of fact, I'm looking at a picture of it now. Ricky has, you can check it out, Ricky E. Banks. He spells it actually Captain. It's CAPTRICKY E. Banks on Facebook, and he posts a lot of pictures of this stuff on Facebook. Even his pre-release stuff. And so if you want to see some of this, or go to his website, bankslures.com. I'm not sure if he has that Mimic Mullet up yet. Matter of fact, I'll look while you're telling him a little bit more about it and see if he has it up yet. But it's a beautiful looking bait.
Yep, yeah, that's a really good color. It's really natural. It blends in with the environment, which is kind of what you're looking for. But in the overcast, I like to use just a plain white because it really stands out, and we've been getting some overcast mornings here lately. So you kind of got to pick your color based on the conditions. When the fish are in that eating mood, they'll hit just about anything, but it's kind of wise to pick your color based on the sky and the water conditions. Because my theory is that if you look at reds that are in different type of water, like when they're in the real tannic dark water and you pull them out, they're really coppery because what they're trying to do is blend in. That's what everything out there is trying to do, is blend in. And the mullet will do it to a certain extent. So basically, in order to make the predator fish see what they're naturally seeing, you want to pick a color that's kind of blending into the environment.
Yep, I see what you're saying. We're kind of seeing that over here now on the Gulf Coast. With the afternoon rains, I know on the Atlantic side, I'm sure it does affect the the flats and the estuaries, whether it's harbors, bays, or what, that lead out to the Atlantic from inland. But over here, we do have a heavy flood of water that comes from inland into the Gulf of Mexico. And since we don't really have the flow that you guys have on the Atlantic, we end up with some pretty strong brackish and fresh water mixing in. And, it'll turn the color a little bit more from the, the normal clearer color to a tea or a darker tea color. And like you said, the locals always like to match that color. And like you always say, match the color with the environment, with the water and the bait. And absolutely, I see what you're saying exactly.
And our water clarity right now, knock on wood, is pretty damn good. Okay. Considering that we're in the middle of June, most areas are still crystal clear, which I'm hoping is a sign of things to come. But with all the recent rainfall we've been having, and the heat really kicking in, us on the Space Coast, in about a month, it's most likely going to turn into that pea green that we get every summer, which, in that case, you're going to want to turn to something flashy. And the flats creeper is great with that paddle tail. It puts off a lot of vibration, and the way it's engineered, when it's doing a straight retrieve, it kind of has a little side to side when you're retrieving it, and it really puts off a good flash. And also in that situation, since the visibility is going to be cut down of the fish, definitely want to go with some kind of a bait scent, and Procure is about the best on the market. It's not your traditional oil type. They've got the super gel, which is almost like a glue. You put that on there and it's good to go for about a half hour, so you kind of want to work on the tactile senses of the fish other than sight, which would be vibration and scent when we start getting this crappy water, which is almost inevitable.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. It's hard to see, and even with vibration, like you say, the thicker the water is, the slower sound waves move through water, or even the type of turbulence that's created by the tail. So having a scent is, it's key in everything, I think. I love Procure. I've been using it myself for about 6 months now. And I've never used it before. I've never, I've seen it used and everything. And, I'll just try this bait without it. After the first time I used it, I will never go out fishing without it again. So, I saw an instant difference in the way fish react to it. But like you say, in murky, dirty water, and when it starts to get this time of year, that scent of that scent of smell and taste. Not only does it attract them, but even with artificial baits, it keeps them hitting it. So if they hit it once and you're like me and you make the mistake of missing it, there's a good chance it's going to come back and hit it again because it know it lost something good.
Yeah, because you're making it a little more realistic by working on another one of their senses. And it also, in my opinion, if you've ever seen a video of, say, a snooker or tarpon sucking up a plug or a lure, they almost instantly know that it's plastic and they spit it out. Now, when you put this Procure on it, it tricks them for about an extra second, and it allows you to get a really good hook set on them. Because sometimes a snook can suck your lure up and spit it out before it even transfers back to your rod. So putting the Procure on there is going to allow that fish to hold on to it for an extra second or two and get you a nice hook set out of it.
Oh, absolutely. And the baits themselves, I'm looking at the Flats Creeper, and I've always said it when I first saw these minnows come out. They're soft baits here. You can get them at banksforce.com. Check it out. And just the shape, they're unique because they actually have a laser cut down the sides of them and in with a little bit of glitter that they put in there. But that little laser cut creates a line all the way across what would be the body of the minnow down to the tail. And it does create, a very realistic look in the water, like those are lines of scales. It's very, very unique. And the eyes on them too, he went with really big sized eyes. And for baits, they just look beautiful. I love it, especially that black bait with the, I think it goes off into like a silvery clear look. But you got to check it out, folks. Go to banksforce.com, check out the Flats Creeper. And we're actually going to have some both photos and video of Marc catching fish on the Flats Creeper, different types of them, and a couple of his new lures too. So probably within the next month or so, as we update things, you'll be able to go to the website fishyfins.com and click on Marc's channel and see what he's catching. And while he's reeling it in with that bait, you can click on the link and buy the bait. And so there's a bait, there's a proof, there's a picture in the video, and get out there and catch you some fish and have fun. So these are great, Marc. Well, I'm sorry I keep cutting into you and then showing off. So sorry about that, Marc.
Hey, you're fine, buddy. But those eyes, it might not seem important on paper, but when you think about it, what a predator fish, if you know why a redfish has a spot on his tail, then you'll understand, because the redfish has a spot. It's kind of a mimic eye, so that when the small fry fingerling, when the predator fish go to attack it, they home in on the eyeball. Mm-hmm. So what it does is allow the predator fish to hit the tail instead, and it gives the reds a better escape ratio. So when you've got these really realistic looking eyes on the bait, mm-hmm. it gives the fish a really good target to home in on, rather than your traditional soft plastics that are just a chunk of plastic, no eyes, no detail, nothing like that. So it might seem like a small thing, but things like that make all the difference. And especially with the laser cut, the laser cut serves a couple of purposes. It gives off a little more vibration and makes a little more turbulence, and it also catches the light and reflects it back at different angles to increase the flash. So there's a lot of little things that go into his baits that he really did his homework on, and it shows every time you get out there and fish with him.
Well, like I said, they're beautiful looking. They work well. I've seen them in water, and when they kind of glitter across the water when they're going through, it really mimics that look of a scale moving through the lake. So they're
and
really
the Flats Creeper is really versatile, because depending on the size hook you use, mm-hmm. if you use the 32nd ounce 5/0, which is a lighter hook, you can fish it higher in the water column, and when you practice, you can actually turn it into a buzz bait, fish it right below the surface, and it really cuts a nice V weight like a panic mullet.
Well, that's what I really like about them. It's even if you're not using a jig head, like you said, if you use the actual hooks design to work baits like this that don't need any extra action or eyes from a jig head, they work beautifully. And just by changing the hook size, you're not really interrupting the action of this bait at all. It still has the eyes, still has the gill line and the scales, and a nice well-hidden hook. So it's really a well-manufactured, well-engineered bait. So like I said, banksforce.com, you really can't beat, try them. Just try, if you match them close to the color that you're using in your area, I'm sure that you're going to have some great luck with them, because they're great. And look at Marc's pictures, proof's in the pudding.
Well, that's now my go-to bait. Ever since when I first got on with Banks, the Creeper wasn't available yet. and it's slowly but surely becoming my go-to. It's a great search bait. I've caught, I think it's been out for 3 months now, and I've caught at least 6 or 7 reds over 40 inches on it. It covers a lot of water, so even if you can't see the fish, like say on an overcast day like today, where sight fishing is kind of hindered because you don't have the sun lighting up the water, that's a search bait. I use it like a spoon, man. I just fan cast it and just straight retrieve it back to me, and it'll find the fish for you. You know, as long as you're covering the water and putting the work in, and you get it in the right places, them fish are going to see it, and you'll pop fish that you never even knew were there with it.
Well, that's really the biggest part. When you're working flats, there's so much area, and you really need to cover acreage. You need to cover distance to find fish, and like you say, overcast days, it's not so easy to see fish if they're not on the surface. Right breaking the surface. So yeah, it's a beautiful bait. I think now Camp Ricky Banks just started doing this full time, and I know last week or so he said he was just starting to really get out there and manufacture new stuff. And he has an electric chicken that I saw he posted on Facebook, and I'm going to try to get that from him probably in the next month or so. And it's a flats creeper in the color of the electric chicken. And now that's only because here locally, everybody's all hot on the electric chicken color. So everybody, electric chicken, electric. All right, well, we're going to get one.
Great color.
Oh, it's working well around here. I used it myself, worked really well. So we're going to get a pack of those from him as soon as he gets that color out and ready to go. And I think it's going to do really well. I can't wait to use it.
Our version of that is we call it boudin,
and
it's a little different. It's not like most of the quote unquote electric chicken colors. They're pretty hot. They're really loud. This one's kind of muted a little bit, and in my opinion, it looks a lot more natural. And especially when you're using that dog boss to try to imitate it as a shrimp, those colors they just jump on it because it's got that pink belly and it really looks like a shrimp down there. So that's another great color that I didn't even mention.
Yeah, it does. It's and would you say that color was called?
Boudin.
Boudin, and it's to look at the color. And now when the water starts changing, the pink shrimp is always hot. Pink shrimp is just a good color. But now that we're starting to get that darker water, and like you said over there, some of that greenish color in the water, having that little chartreuse mixed in seems to really make a difference. But yeah, like I said, as soon as he has them, I think we're going to be all over a pack of those suckers, and just we catch big reds and big snook around, even the flounder, big flounder around here hit that electric chicken color. And these little flats creepers are like a Venn shad, but they're long and good size and beefy, and they look just like the bait you see running all over the flats out here and on the edge of the shoals. So they're just a beautiful bait.
We've been getting pictures sent in from people who are using the flats creeper, and they are getting quite a bit of flounder on them, using a heavier hook and kind of bouncing along the bottom, keeping it in the strike zone of a flounder. You kind of got to, if you're flounder fishing in more than 6 feet and you're fishing at the top, they're probably not going to see it. But if you adapt how you're manipulating it and get it down to the bottom and kind of bounce it off the bottom, and when you do that, it makes these little puffs of sand, and it looks just like a natural bait fish just kind of moving through the bottom, and then the flounder will tear that up.
Yeah, that's how we've been doing it exactly, is slow things down so that, the bait's basically popping off the bottom. And, excuse me, actually the last one I caught, and Chris was telling me that they actually jump on top of the bait and sit on it for a second before they eat it. And I actually caught it on the side, and so he must have kind of jumped on the bait, and I jerked the line a little bit early. And but so like I said, you do definitely, like you say, have to slow things down and work that bait on the bottom. But the flounder are all up here now in Charlotte Harbor, around Placida, Cape Hayes, that whole area where the shoals are, and you have some grass leading off into sand. A lot of flounder all around there now.
Definitely. It's a hugely versatile bait, and it'll catch anything that swims out here. Anything that's going to eat a mullet or a minnow, if you're doing it right, they're going to annihilate that flats creeper.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's pretty good. I'll tell you what, that's a great report, too, from Cocoa Beach, folks. Sounds like Marc is just catching some nice reds still out there, too. They're still spooling around, and like you said, getting ready for mating season. And I was going to get Marc to talk a little bit about another bait here pretty soon, but I'm going to let him wrap up anything that he has. Do you have anything else you want to go over in Cocoa Beach?
Yeah, it's not uncommon in kind of these big reds this time of year, but like I said, respect them, because a lot of them fish are the same age as you. They've been around for a while, and they're a hugely important part of the population because, they're the ones that are restocking it. Our breeder reds, they stay in here year round. They're not landlocked, but it's just too far to go to each inlet. so they spawn, it's kind of unique. They spawn right here in the river. And essentially each year they're restocking this whole area with reds. So when you got to keep that in mind when you're targeting them. Last year when we had the spawners, we came out there, we saw a lot of bad practice going on. We saw a lot of dead floating. You'll get a guy that's got 4 people on his boat, a couple of them hooked up, and he's grinding on the trolling motor at 5 trying to get his other 2 people hooked up, and meanwhile he's dragging the 2 he's got hooked up, and it's really bad on the fish. So if you do find these big reds, keep things like that in mind. Try to cut the fight down as much as you can by increasing your tackle size, and just revive the fish. Last year I seen a lot of people just dumping them back in. They try to keep up with the school, and that's horrible. We found several reds last year that were on the surface. They were still alive. They were contorted because they get lactic acid buildup from that fight.
Mm-hmm.
And what ends up happening is kind of like if you ran 10 miles, you'd be cramping up. You would need a cool down period, which is that revival period.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of want to put them in the water and do them side to side, kind of like swimming motion. And what that does is it works that lactic acid out of the fillets, and it allows them to get over that cramp and swim off. And we, like I said, we saw several up on the top, contorted, and they just couldn't move them. It took 15-20 minutes of revival, but we got them to kick off. So, if you do that in the beginning, get them in there and spend some time on them, get them right and kick off, you'll be able to catch them next year.
Well, that's just it, and I've talked to all of you guys. You guys are out there fishing, and pro staffers, the tour guides. If you ruin the estuaries, you ruin the population. There's nothing there to fish again. And when it comes to these big reds, and I couldn't emphasize it more, especially these huge ones over on the Space Coast that you guys catch. When you see Marc taking a picture, or any of the tour guides or anybody out there that's fishing and posting pictures that are intelligent, know what they're doing, even when they pick these big reds up out of the water, they reach underneath the belly of the red, they support it, they support the whole length of the body. These things are huge, and they're used to being buoyant and almost zero gravity floating. And even when you take them out of the water, if you grab them underneath their gills or by their mouth and you pull up a big, 25-pound red, and you start bending its mouth around and bending its guts around after a fight like that, the chances are it's probably going to die because you did internal damage to the fish. And you may not see it.
That's another thing I forgot to bring up is definitely, I'll see a lot of pictures, even now, where it's common knowledge not to do it, of people jaw hanging them.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, they're living in basically a zero gravity environment. They're not meant to feel their own weight. So as soon as you pull them out of the water, they're feeling the same gravity we are, which we're designed to take, but they're not. Their guts will run downhill and tear, vertebrae will separate, and it's called cryptic mortality. They might kick off when you let them go, but odds are they're going to just wind up having a slow death, and it's not good for anything. Like I said, these big reds are restocking this area yearly, so the more we have in here, the more reds we're going to have in the future. So it's a big thing to just spend the 5 or 10 minutes now to make sure they get off right, and just respect the fish.
Well, it's like everything, and I say that if we don't do it ourselves and we're not smart ourselves, eventually there's going to be a law or rule or something put in place, and we're going to be denied access to it entirely. So it's really important for everybody out there. Off the bat, big reds are terrible eating. So as far as eating big reds go, you're better off catching a catfish. You'll get a way better meal out of one than you will a big gigantic red. Generally, they're fantastic for breeding and keeping the estuary spawned and full, but terrible for eating. They're that big because even dolphin won't take them. I mean, let's be honest here. Fish that get that huge, it's because most predators, once they get that big, aren't all that interested in that nasty food. So
they're protected anyway because our slot is 18 to 27 inches. So if they're over 27, they have to go back anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is a good thing. And one other quick thing, when you do find them schools, you can sit on them all day and just pop fish left and right. But and last year we had people making posts. Yeah, we caught 40 fish at that school. That's a little excessive. What we would do, we'd find them in the morning, we'd pop 2 or 3, get our pictures, and then after that, hey, let's leave them alone, let's go to the flats and look for some singles. You don't have to sit there and hammer on them all day. And the more pressure those schools receive when they're in the spawning mode, you can have 2,000 fish in a school, all 40 inches plus. But what happens is the more they get hammered on, the more they break down, the more they fracture. They make smaller schools. So in the end, the spawn isn't really as effective as it could be if they were, in their original 1,500, 2,000 fish schools. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Get a couple, get some nice pictures, release them properly, and then, move on.
Well, that's the whole purpose of it, like I said, and even in, like the no motor zones, specifically to keep that stress out of the area. Don't want to spook fish. They really need that quiet area. They need to get together. And even if you look at the percentages, I mean, even if a school of reds produces, 50,000 offspring, out of that 50,000, they'll be lucky if 10, maybe 5% of that 50,000 actually make it to adulthood. So when you start playing with those numbers and reducing them at the other end of the chain, 2 years later, you've got a huge deficit of that fish species. So the same thing happened with the snook during the freeze. And we definitely don't want to do that as sportsmen go out there and wipe out species and hurt, their estuaries. But I tell you what, though, I want to move on to this bait. I love that. I'm just sitting here looking at it while we're talking, and I'm gonna kind of change the channel over here and run over to this new bait that Ricky Banks put together. They call it the Pimp'In Shrimp. And when I first saw it, he's got a nice picture of a beautiful redfish he caught out there on the Space Coast. And even looking at this here, Ricky's holding his redfish up and holding it underneath its belly to support it so he doesn't hurt it. I mean, you can see him doing the same thing, being careful and saving the fish. But now when I saw this picture, there's these, I thought he caught a bunch of seaweed with it. I'm like, oh, there's some long, you must be fishing in grass over there to get that red. And then I saw it and I said, wait a minute, those are the antenna on the shrimp. And I haven't seen that in so long. Shrimp, usually nice, big, tasty shrimp have those long antenna on them. And so these new baits that I don't know, I guess they're not ready for production yet or for sale, but these pictures are incredible. Tell me a little bit about this, what you know about this.
Yeah, this is brand new, and I haven't got it in my hands yet, which hopefully soon, because I'm ready to throw that thing. If you look at, most other shrimps on the market, this is completely unique. It's different. It's, for one, it's got a flat bottom, which if you've ever seen shrimp in the afternoon, they're usually dug into the sand, and they've kind of got a low profile. So what this flat bottom does, it kind of, when it's sitting on the bottom, it looks like a dug-in shrimp, which is naturally what these fish, when they're tailing around, the shrimp aren't jumping up and going, hey, eat me. They're burying in, and that's why you see the reds rooting so hard when they're tailing. They're trying to pop these shrimp up out of the mud. So number one, you're mimicking that dug-in shrimp look, and then the legs, he molded the legs a certain way to where when you creep along the bottom, these legs will actually walk.
Oh,
so
wow.
It looks just like a shrimp, and it's specifically designed to get negative tailers to eat, fish like the ones I've been running into that, they're tailing.
Mm-hmm.
They're happy fish, but they're just really focused on what they're on over there. And they're not hitting what we're throwing some of the times, but I think this shrimp is really that's going to be a game changer in that area.
Well, it's beautiful. I mean, the color's great. It's the ones that he posted have really a nice, kind of a mix between a light root beer and a lot of glitter. And the antennae are just incredible. I mean, very realistic. I really haven't seen that on a plastic bait, and I don't think I've ever seen antenna like this on a plastic shrimp. And I think they're just very inviting looking, very realistic, and I think they're going to be a hit. I mean, I really think these are going to be a big hit.
You saw the pictures, man. That was the maiden voyage, the first run of that shrimp, and I mean, he tore them up. So, and it's still in the tweaking phase. He can still make improvements to it. So that's going to be a killer bait, and I'm chomping at the bit to get some in my hands.
Boy, I'll tell you what, well, he's a perfectionist when it comes to these baits. I mean, I know I've seen a couple of them that he's held back a little bit of time just to kind of tweak it here and there. And, by the time you guys got it and started fishing them and made them available, wow. I mean, like I'm looking at this one here, there's a little bit lighter one with, like you say, the pink legs, and it has kind of like a green to pink tail. And I could see what you're saying with those legs and the flat body. It would actually sit on the bottom, like you say, just like a shrimp planted in the sand. And beautiful. You guys got to get on Facebook and check these pictures out. Like I said, go to Facebook and search for Ricky Banks, or Banks Lures, just Banks Lures, 2 words, and you'll see these photos. So hopefully you'll have them on his site and for sale soon. That'd be awesome.
That's the thing about Ricky, man. He is awesome. He won't. He'll tweak on it and tweak on it and tweak on it before he releases it. So he's got it dialed in exactly how he wants it. He's not going to release junk just to get you to buy it and increase his bottom line. He's not going to release it until he's 100% confident that that lure is what it needs to be, and that lure is going to go out there and catch fish. So when you buy a Banks lure, you're also buying, a whole ton of engineering and R&D, and I mean, they're just well-made lures. And like I say, every time you go out there with a Banks lure, it shows.
Oh, there's no doubt. And, like I always say, the proof's in the pudding, and the pictures, the videos he posts are just beautiful. And baits work well. His topwater baits work well. His plastic baits work well. I've always been a fan of mainly his plastic baits, only because they're unique. And, you can go through a lot of different plastic and soft bait manufacturers, and there's a lot of common forms and shapes, and, the old wiggle worm, and the old, everybody's got a shad. But when he comes up with something, I mean, he actually makes it his own. And whether it's this new shrimp, the Dock Boss, the Flats Creeper, I mean, those are very unique designs, unique to his own engineering, and the feedback he got from you guys. And so
that's one thing I've always said about Ricky. Everything he comes up with, it's not a rehash of the same old things like you see pop up. It seems like everything that pops up nowadays is just a different imitation of a DOA cow or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Not Ricky stuff. Everything Ricky puts out is extremely unique. And I mean, he's still got more stuff in the works. He's actually got a 7-inch mangrove mercenary that he's molding up, and we're testing out, which is going to be perfect to cobia and bigger fish. It's really big, it's really heavy, it casts a mile. So I mean, he's got a lot of stuff in the works, and his hard baits are great too. I've been messing around with the hard baits. The top waters are just great. And we were actually, me and Ricky were out a couple weeks ago fishing in a canal, and we had tarpon everywhere. They just wouldn't eat. And he said, well, let me bust out my little secret plug here, and he put on the micro pogey, which is a real small, it's 1.5 inches, 2 inches. And I mean, as soon as he tied that thing on, it was on. Bam, they started nailing it. So he's basically got a lure for every situation, even fish that might appear shut down.
Mm-hmm.
If you play with what he's got, and try to match the hatch of what they're on, you're going to find something in his arsenal that's going to make that fish eat.
Well, Ricky's, he's a legend in the local fishing, actually in the national fishing community. And, he's been doing it a long time. He knows what works, and he's really a growing breed, and I'm glad to see it happening, of manufacturers that are producing, manufacturing, and selling right here in the United States, mainly in Florida. And I've been talking to quite a few of the locals that do it themselves and started manufacturing here locally in the United States or in Florida in general. And it's good to see that moving from overseas back here locally and putting locals to work. And I tell you what, you can't beat the engineering and the design, because I don't care how much money you have and what country you come from. If you're not a local and you didn't grow up and fish these waters and spent the past 3 or 4 decades in here, you're just not going to know. No matter how pretty the lure is, you're not going to know what the fish are hitting and when to sell that product and where it works. So this is it's a unique product. Glad to see that manufacturing coming back to America here lately, especially in the fishing community. And you folks, you got it, bankslures.com, or go to Facebook and look up Banks Lures or Captain Ricky E. Banks, and you'll see some great stuff. And also Marc, Marc has a great Facebook page. Check out Marc's stuff. And he also has a Space Coast Fishing class you can check out on Facebook. He does toward or actual learning guides. He'll take you out there and get you on a boat. I think you're still are you doing kayak out there still, Marc?
Well, what me and Ricky are doing, we're kind of putting a thing together where, he's going to have a guided charter service, but it's also going to be kind of a hybrid, kind of an instructional class type deal. So, you're not only going to go out there and catch fish, he's going to take you out there and teach you how to catch fish, so that the next time you go out there, you're going to be able to do it on your own, kind of like me. So what he's doing the boat side of it, and I'm doing the kayak canoe side of it. So that's another
cool.
great thing that we've got in the works.
And that works. I'll tell you what, folks, when you're coming down here to Florida, whether you're moving down or just coming down on vacation, getting out and learning how the baits work, you go out with these guys. They know the local waters, they know the local fish, they know what works, and you can see from their Facebook posts, the photos are incredible. So you can come out here and you can book a charter with them, learn how to fish, learn where to fish, and that's very important. Learn where to fish and have a great time. It's a great experience, and these guys really know their business. Well, Marc, let me ask you, anything else you got out there? How about Banana River, Mosquito Lagoon,
Well,
how's
the
fishing?
Banana River's doing exceptionally well right now in the no motor zone. If you know where they're at, there's fish out there. It's a huge area, and the fish I've been finding, they're in one particular little spot, and there's a lot of little spots out there like that. If you get out there and do your homework and you know, pole around out there, you'll find these little niche areas where the fish like to hang out. And I won't give too much away, but you know, there's just certain features of the bottom that they just they gravitate to. And like I said, if you get out there and do your homework, you're gonna find out these little spots. And I mean, the Banana River's huge, not just the no motor zone. You know, if you go south, you've got the Thousand Islands area, which is going off right now. You know, drifting the mangroves, flipping baits up under the mangroves. You know, you got a lot of reds out there, and you can't really see them. But if you kind of blind cast the mangroves, you know, you'll pick up 3, 4, 5 nice slot reds in a day. South Banana River, even farther south of that, north of Pineda, on the west side flat, that's not doing too bad right now. We got a lot of people out there waiting, picking up nice reds, and your average red out there is a little bigger. You know, it's about 30, 32 inches. Your average fish with fish up to 40 inches being caught close to the drop-off. And then the Indian River basically from 528 north is just full of fish right now. And it's just a matter of getting out there, checking out areas, and just doing your homework and getting the recon, you know. And you spend enough time out here in any of these waters, you're going to establish patterns, and you're really going to figure out where these fish are, where they hold, where they feed, and that's just, you know, you can't substitute for time on the water. So if you're really trying to figure out these areas, get yourself out there as much as possible and just kind of devote yourself to it. You're going to find the patterns, and you're going to find the fish.
I'll tell you what, there's one thing that I've been learning quite a bit just talking to you guys here on the phone and here locally, some of the local charter guys, is, you know, fish do have feeding areas. They have specific areas they go to, exact times of the day, exact times of the year. And once you figure out where their dinner table is and what time of day and what water that is, it's not too hard to find them. Once you, like you said, got to get out there, you got to test the waters.
The best thing you can do is keep a log. If you keep a log, you know, I've got a log, and it's just insane how the same fish will come back to the same area year after year. And, you know, you could try to remember it, but if you got it written down, then, man, you've got your cheat sheet. So that's another great thing to do if you're trying to learn this area. Just keep a log of what you find, where you found it, what time of year it was, you know, what time of day it was, and that becomes kind of a treasure trove of something you can look back on and really get a good reference point.
Yeah.
Definitely want to give a shout out to bankslures.com. You know, go check it out. And even if he doesn't have the color you want, send him a color and he'll color match whatever you want. The samsite.com, Shallow Addiction Magazine, great online publication. Captain Troy Life, he's a great dude, great publication. Go to procure.com and get the bait scents we were talking about. Basically, what I like to use the mullet, shrimp, and the blue crab. As far as super gels go, those are great little things to have in your bag. And also go check out Old Town Kayaks, oldtowncanoe.com. I recently got sponsored with them, and I should get my kayak on Monday. Great company, and they got some great products. And actually, keep your ear to the ground on them, because here in ICAST, they're about to unveil the Predator. It's redone, and they haven't really dropped much information on it, but they say it's going to be a hands-free drive. And it's supposed to be revolutionary. So definitely keep your ears open for that. That's going to be huge. OldTownCanoe.com.
There you go, folks. Mr. Marc Krsek over on the Space Coast of Florida. Great fishing report. Great information about Banks Lures and Procure. He has a kayak coming next week, and we sent him a high-definition video camera. So he'll be, over the next month or so, getting some nice video of catching big fish and pictures, and have a cool journal set up on our website so they could put information in, and you could actually track the pictures, what lure they used, where they fished, and check it all out, both video and photos. So thanks a lot, Marc, and we'll hook up with you in about a week or so and get an update on the fishing out there. Thanks, Marc. Have a great day, buddy.